Today we are joined by the CEO and Managing Director, Mark Diamond, who is with Antisense Therapeutics, ASX code ANP. Mark, you just completed a successful $7.3 million capital raising. Can you tell us a little bit more about where this money is going to be spent?
Sure, Tim. It's by the way, pleasure to be speaking again today. And yes, we were delighted to announce our oversubscribed institutional placement, as you say, where we raised 7.3 million. The funds are essentially going to be put to work around preparing for our planned phase 2B clinical trial that we're well advanced in the planning of, that we're intending to run in Europe. So as part of that process, we're well down the track of arranging for the manufacture of clinical trial materials for the program. So a major part of this financing will go towards the completion of that manufacture. All the regulatory interactions that are required to be undertaken to essentially get us to a position of an approval to start that phase 2B study. So we've flagged with the market that we're expecting, if all goes well, to have that approval through by the middle of next year.
Mark, so post this capital raising, you've got a strong institutional register. What's that look like?
Yes, so we had just out yesterday a substantial notice from Platinum Asset Management. So we're very pleased that they've come back in and continued to show their support of our DMD program. So they're now just under 6%. And through the raising, we actually had 8 new institutional investors that came in. One other outcome from the significant oversubscription that we had with the raising was that we were able to cross one of our larger investors who was the market had perceived as being potential overhang on the stock. So it was a really, from our perspective, very, very successful raise. We did it within the 15% capacity, and it's very pleased to see support from existing shareholders and some new larger institutional investors come onto the register.
Mark, so as we move into 2021, what are the key catalysts and events that shareholders should look towards for Antisense?
Obviously, the continued successful progress of our planning towards initiating our phase 2B clinical trial in Europe. So we've said as a next step that we're expecting to submit what's known as our pediatric investigational plan. This is a document that the European regulatory authorities require, where we're outlining all of our proposed clinical studies in children in Europe. So as part of that will be the phase 2B study protocol. So we're anticipating the PIP application going in. We've said either end of this year or very early next year. And based on anticipated initial feedback from that PIP application, we'd then be looking to submit our clinical trial application in the first half, with approval, as I mentioned before, anticipated middle of the year. As part of that, again, as I highlighted earlier, we've got a very significant manufacturing campaign occurring. So we expect to be updating shareholders on our progress towards getting ourselves set for having clinical supplies to run the phase 2B study. The other key initiative of the company that we've spoken about is, we think AT1102, the drug that we're taking into the phase 2B study in Europe for Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, has broader application in inflammatory disease than just the Duchenne's opportunity. And so we're very sort of excited about the fact that this financing that we've done allows us to undertake important preliminary work around testing the compound in some of these new disease settings. So we're expecting to come to market with important sort of news around our progress of advancing the drug in these new indications. So I think that's going to be a really important piece of news flow for shareholders to look out for. And next piece is we're making very solid progress with the US around our clinical development plans strategy. We're working very vigorously with our regulatory experts in the US. So I think in the time frame we just highlighted, we expect to be able to come out with a more definitive plan around next steps for the clinical development of the drug in the US. So, really lots of news flow, lots of work for the company, but it's great that to have this financing now behind us with the support of the investors that we've touched on before to allow us to be able to accelerate those plans.
Mark, with a lot of the biotechs listed in Australia, there's also enormous opportunities to be listed offshore. We've seen a number of companies be extremely successful having offshore listings, which obviously attract international investors. What's the plan there for Antisense in terms of overseas listings?
Yeah, we announced recently our plans to dual list on the Frankfurt Exchange. With that goal in mind that you outlined of bringing on sophisticated institutional investment or investors rather out of Europe. So we excited by the prospect of being able to take our story, as it were, around our European phase 2B clinical trial plans and kind of have that promoted and marketed in Europe. So we've got a investor relations firm who specialise in helping Australian companies dual list on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We're their first biotech that they'll have the opportunity to take to the German and European investors. They're very excited on our behalf because they already identified a number of peers in the German market, people that are working on drugs targeting messenger RNA like our antisense drugs do. That's perceived to be a very sort of hot area in the German market, but mainly being undertaken that development work by private companies. So we may offer a unique position here for German investors who are very familiar, savvy with our type of technology, but don't have the opportunity to be able to invest locally. So that is is something that we're expecting to announce on shortly. The actual listing process is well underway. We have an ADR program in the US and have seen recently, as you pointed out, Tim, some local companies getting great traction there. So we're hopeful as well too that some of our investor relations initiatives in the US will allow for their more liquidity, in the stock through the trading of our ADR. So we concur with the other biotechs that you were sort of referring to, that this is a smart move for biotechs, given we're talking about a global product for a global market.
Mark Diamond, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim.